I spent years watching him destroy lives, knowing no one would believe me if I spoke up. Now his empire is crumbling and I'm the reason. But the part I've never told anyone is what it cost me. I thought I was being clever. Before officially stepping into my new role as the district health inspector, I decided I'd take one quiet day to see what kitchens were really like. No staged performances for the clipboard, no fake smiles. Just the truth. I'd been warned about Chef Randy. Other inspectors called him untouchable, but I figured I could handle myself. I was wrong. I slipped in through the delivery in trance, old sneakers, hair in a messy bun, nothing about me screaming authority. Randy was hunched over a chopping board when I walked in, and without even looking up he barked. Kitchen's not hiring. Hostess apps are up front. Then, like I was some piece of trash that blew in off the street, he physically turned me toward the door with his knife still in hand. I stayed put. I've worked in food service before, I told him, calm but firm. That made him pause. And then he laughed. Loud. The kind of laugh that makes everyone else in the room stop what they're doing just to watch. Free entertainment. He called to the others. Another one who thinks binge-watching cooking shows makes them a chef. He started circling me like I was prey, talking in mocking baby talk. Does the little missy know how to hold a knife? Can she wash a dishy-wishy? A bus tub of dirty plates hit the counter in front of me. Prove it, he sneered. So I started scrubbing, expression neutral, while he kept the show going for his crew. When I reached for an ingredient to inspect it, he flicked on the burner beneath my hand. Flames shot up, heat licking my skin. I jerked back just in time. Try this sauce, he said, shoving a spoon toward my mouth. Before I could react, a knife clattered to the floor inches from my toes, another test. The room laughed nervously. Then came the real humiliation. Turn around, he ordered. When I hesitated, he spun me himself, hands lingering. Not bad from behind. Now bend over and grab that pot. I crouched instead. Wrong move. He yanked me upright again. I said bend. Simple instructions. His breath was hot on my neck as he fiddled unnecessarily with my apron strings, taking his sweet time. My place is upstairs, he murmured. We can discuss your qualifications privately. I stepped away. He grabbed my hand, tracing my palm. Let me show you the proper grip, he said, pressing himself into me from behind. I pulled free and instantly his demeanor turned sharp, dangerous. He whipped out his phone, snapped a photo while I was grimacing and showed it to the other cooks. This is going in the group chat. Every kitchen in the state will know exactly what kind of girl shows up begging for work. Before I could move, he plucked my wallet from my back pocket, held my ID up for everyone to see, snapped another photo, making sure my address was visible. Now I know where you live. The kitchen fell silent. Then, with a smirk, he said, You know what? Our new friend needs to cool off. He dragged me to the walk-in freezer, shoved me inside and loudly announced. When I let her out, she'll either give me what I want or never work in this town again. The lock clicked. I sat there in the freezing air, watching my breath cloud in front of me, making mental notes of every violation I'd already spotted. 20 minutes later, the door swung open. Randy stood there, smug, ready to negotiate. I walked out without a word, straight toward the exit, until the kitchen doors banged open and the owner came rushing in. Has the health inspector arrived yet? District said she'd be here. He froze when he saw me. Recognition lit up his face. Inspector Sinclair? I didn't realize you'd already started. He shook my hand enthusiastically. I could feel Randy's blood drain from his face. His knife slipped from his hand, clattering to the floor. The other cooks backed away. I left without another word, and I had no idea what was waiting for me. Because while I was still driving home, my phone buzzed. A notification from that restaurant group chat popped up on my screen, Randy's message. Watch out for this one. Claims to be a health inspector, but she's a scammer. Lives at 4782 Maple Street, apartment 3B. Don't let her near your kitchens. Comments flooded in, chefs saving my address, passing it around, adding their own lies. Someone posted the photo of me grimacing, captioned with disgusting accusations I couldn't even read all the way through. When I got home, there was a printout of that same photo taped to my door in red marker, liar. Inside, I locked everything and started documenting every message, every photo, building a timeline. I still had 5 days before my official start date. 5 days for this to get completely out of hand. The next morning, pounding on my door woke me. Through the peephole, I saw 2 men in chef whites. One was filming on his phone. They eventually left, but not before saying they'd be back. I wasn't hiding. I had more kitchens on my unofficial inspection list, and I wasn't letting Randy's intimidation win. The first stop went fine, owner didn't recognize me, lunch prep looked clean. But at the second place, the head chef kept looking at his phone, then at me, his expression hardening. He whispered to a cook, who immediately pulled out his own phone. Suddenly the air in that kitchen changed. Loud comments about fake inspectors and women making up stories filled the space. When I tried to check the walk-in cooler, the chef blocked me, phone in hand with my photo on the screen. You need to leave. We don't serve your kind here. I left, cheeks burning. In my car, 3 new messages waited. One was just heavy breathing. The next, a photo of my car in that very parking lot. And the last, from Randy himself. This is just the beginning. Over the next 48 hours, the harassment became relentless. Every restaurant I walked into, someone was already there, whispering to the owner about the scammer. My building's security cameras caught 4 different people trying my apartment door at all hours. A box of rotting fish appeared on my welcome mat. My tires? Flattened twice. I started treating this like an investigation of my own. Every text, every photo, every suspicious face, I documented it all. Installed a doorbell camera. Started carrying pepper spray. But stopping my pre-inspections? Not a chance. This job wasn't just a paycheck. It was mine. And I wasn't going to let Randy and his little culinary mafia scare me off. By the fourth day, I walked into a tiny bistro just as they were opening. Mrs. Colt, the elderly owner, greeted me warmly. She didn't seem to recognize me. Finally, I thought, maybe I'd catch a break. Halfway through checking their prep work, the back door slammed open. A young chef stormed in, phone in hand. "That's her," he barked, pointing straight at me. Mrs. Colt blinked in confusion as he shoved the phone at her, scrolling through post after post about me from the group chat. Her face tightened as she read. "You need to leave," she said quietly. "We don't want any trouble." On my way out, I noticed the young chef following me. He was filming me, narrating to his phone like I was some criminal caught in the act. Even knocked on my car window while still recording. That evening, my doorbell cam pinged. Randy. Standing outside my apartment, arms crossed, staring directly into the lens. 10 minutes. Not moving. Not knocking. Just watching. I barely slept. Every creak in the hallway made my pulse spike. The group chat was still buzzing, my photo being passed around to more and more restaurants. Someone had even made a fake social media account using my face, posting inflammatory garbage to stir things up further. By day 5, I woke up to my windshield plastered with printed screenshots from that chat. A cluster of chefs loitered at the far end of the parking lot, watching me clear them away. Whispering. I had one restaurant left on my preliminary list. Part of me wanted to skip it. Hide until my official start date. But then I remembered the look on Randy's face when he locked me in that freezer, so sure he'd crushed me before I'd even begun. No. He wasn't getting that win. It was a cozy Italian place on the district's edge. I walked in, hoping the rumors hadn't reached here. But then I spotted him, one of Randy's line cooks. His eyes widened and his hands flew to his phone. Within minutes, 3 more chefs from nearby spots stormed in, forming a semicircle around me, phones recording like I was on trial. The owner emerged, baffled by the sudden crowd. The chefs shoved their phones toward him, all talking at once. His confusion turned to suspicion, then concern. "I think you should go," he said finally. As I headed for the door, one chef stepped directly into my path. I didn't recognize him, but the logo on his jacket? One of the most prestigious restaurants in the district. "Randy's a friend," he said low. "He told us exactly what you are. You think you can walk into our kitchens and ruin lives? Think again." I slid past him, fumbling for my car keys, hands shaking. They followed me outside, still filming, still muttering threats, just quiet enough that no recording would catch them. By the time I drove off, I knew Randy had won this round. He'd poisoned the entire culinary network against me. My phone showed 57 unread messages, my address spreading even farther. But tomorrow I'd walk in with my badge, my authority, and the element of surprise. Randy thought he'd ended me before I started. He had no idea what was coming. When I pulled into my complex, his van was in my spot. He leaned against it, that same smug grin plastered on his face. "Sleep tight, Inspector. Big day tomorrow," he called as I passed. I ignored him, stepping past fresh graffiti on my door and another pile of garbage, locking myself in. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, methodically organizing evidence, screenshots, photos, timestamps. I had folders on every participant, every restaurant, every violation I'd seen. A new notification popped up. Someone had posted a picture of my apartment building in the group chat, asking who wanted to pay me a visit. Replies rolled in instantly. I saved them all. At 3 a.m., my doorbell camera went off again. 3 men in chef whites. One spray painting my door while the other stood guard. I recognized one of them from Randy's kitchen. The footage went straight to multiple backups. Morning came. First official day as district health inspector. My suit was crisp, my badge pinned high, my inspection kit ready. The graffiti on my door now dripped red, "Liar lives here." I took a photo before heading out. The district office was small but functional. I arrived early, reviewed the official procedures, picked up my forms. My first assignment was a small cafe with no ties to Randy's crew. The inspection went smoothly, polite owner, minor fixes, nothing hostile. But as I sat in my car afterward, I saw it. Randy's van in the lot. Empty. Watching. So I changed the plan. If they wanted to play cat and mouse, I'd go straight for the nest. The Silver Spoon, run by Marcus, one of Randy's loudest supporters online. I walked in with my badge visible, announced myself. The hostess went pale. From the kitchen came the frantic clatter of a last-minute cleanup. Marcus stormed out, red-faced, blocking my way. I reminded him that refusing an inspection meant immediate closure. His jaw flexed, but he stepped aside. Inside, it was chaos, improper food temps, raw meat next to ready-to-eat dishes, grease so thick it looked permanent. Even mouse droppings in the dry storage. Marcus followed me, seething, hammering away at his phone. Within minutes, my own phone lit up with notifications, the group chat exploding about my presence. Chefs were mobilizing. I kept going. Expired food buried behind fresh stock, cooler running warm. I documented it all. By the time I left, at least a dozen chefs had gathered outside recording me. And right in the middle, Randy. Smiling. They followed me from stop to stop. A convoy. At every restaurant, they warned the owners, tried to sabotage my work. At night, my apartment became a war zone, garbage dumped at my door, dead fish in the hall, car keyed. My landlord started leaving messages about disturbances. But every incident, every face, every threat? It went in the file. The evidence folders were getting thicker. And so was my resolve. By my fourth official day, I thought maybe the chaos was settling. I was wrong. I walked into a small family-owned place and nearly stopped in my tracks. Randy was in the kitchen, chatting with the owner like they were old friends. The second he saw me, that smug little smirk spread across his face. The owner, Mr. Petro, looked visibly uncomfortable. Randy gave him a reassuring pat on the shoulder and strolled toward the door, but not before giving me a quick, subtle throat-slitting gesture. Just for me. Once Randy left, Mr. Petro apologized. Apparently, Randy had popped in before I arrived, claiming I was a fraud. I assured him I wasn't and went about my inspection. The kitchen was clean, well-run, only a couple of minor issues. As I was finishing my report, Mr. Petro came closer, speaking in a low voice. He glanced around nervously before telling me that Randy had been messaging restaurant owners, trying to rally them into filing a formal complaint against me. Some were uneasy about it, but Randy had been pressuring them, threatening to trash their reputations if they didn't join in. I thanked him for his honesty and left. And sure enough, parked across the street was Randy's van. He was sitting in the driver's seat, just watching. Waiting. That night, I decided it was time to go on offense. I made a fake social media account and slipped into a few local restaurant worker groups. And what I found? It painted a bigger picture. This wasn't just about me. Randy had been pulling this stunt for years, harassing women, pushing them out of the industry, smearing their names if they dared stand up to him. I started reaching out to these women privately. Some ignored me. Some were too afraid to talk. But a few had stories that made my stomach turn. Carla, a former sous chef at Randy's place, told me about the constant accidental touches, the comments, the way he'd corner her in the walk-in cooler. When she reported it, he made it his mission to destroy her career. Now she works retail. Emma, a former server, told me she'd rejected Randy's advances, so he planted something in her locker and made an anonymous tip to the police. Charges were dropped, but the damage was done. She had to move to another state to start fresh. This wasn't just my fight anymore. I began documenting their stories, adding them to my growing file. Randy's history was stacking up like a criminal record, but I knew evidence alone wouldn't topple him. I needed strategy. The next morning, my supervisor Connor was waiting for me at the office, holding a stack of papers and looking grim. 6 formal complaints had been filed against me. Allegations of bias, misconduct, all from restaurant owners. I laid my evidence out for him, every photo, every message, every recorded threat. His expression hardened with each page he read. He promised to investigate but warned me that Randy had connections. This was getting dangerous. That day's inspections were tense. Every restaurant I visited had been tipped off. Some were sparkling clean from frantic overnight scrubbing. Others conveniently closed for maintenance the second I walked up. But then Randy slipped. When I returned to his restaurant for an official follow-up inspection, it was like a goldmine of violations. Not just the ones I'd documented during my first visit, but new ones that had popped up in the chaos. Randy wasn't there, but his sous chef Walton was running the show. He looked drained, like the stress had been eating at him. And when our eyes met, I didn't see hostility, I saw relief. As I inspected, he quietly pointed out things I might have missed: meat storage with no temperature logs, soap dispensers empty for days. He led me to the office to show me something else: messages from Randy himself, ordering staff to lie to inspectors, hide dangerous food safety issues. Walton admitted he was done. The harassment of female staff, the unsafe shortcuts, it was too much. He even gave me contacts for other former employees who might talk. By the time I left, I knew I had enough to deal a serious blow to Randy's business. But that night, Randy came at me harder than ever. My doorbell cam caught him leading 6 chefs to my apartment. This time, they didn't just dump garbage, they pounded on the door, shouting threats, rattling the handle. One even pulled out tools, trying to force the lock. I called security, but by the time they arrived, the group had vanished. Theo, the guard, shook his head. He told me management was fed up with the disturbances and might ask me to move out if this kept up. Randy was now trying to get me evicted. The next day, Connor had news. He'd started looking into the complaints against me and found they didn't line up. Some incidents supposedly happened at restaurants I hadn't even visited yet. And then the dominoes began to fall. Owners started withdrawing their complaints. They admitted Randy had pressured them. Mr. Petro, the one who'd warned me earlier, had even called to say Randy had threatened him with bad reviews and harassment if he didn't cooperate. Connor cleared me of all complaints and opened a formal investigation into Randy for interfering with official health department business. It wasn't enough to take him down yet, but it was the first crack in his armor. With Connor backing me, more owners started to break ranks. Some shared their own stories of Randy's manipulation. The once united network of chefs began to fracture. Messages in the group chat showed arguments. A few even reached out to apologize. One chef, Rose, met me in person. She'd worked with Randy years ago and confirmed the same patterns of abuse and intimidation. She handed over names, dates, details that matched the stories I'd already collected. And then came the jackpot. Randy, in his arrogance, had been firing off increasingly aggressive messages in that group chat, threats against anyone who cooperated with me, open admissions of things he'd done to other women, even detailed plans for future harassment. And chefs in his own circle? They were screenshotting everything and sending it straight to me. By my 10th official day, the tension was like static in the air. I walked into what should have been a routine inspection, and there he was. Randy. Surrounded by the last scraps of his loyal little entourage. But this time, the dynamic had shifted. The restaurant owner stood at my side, phone in hand, already having called my supervisor Connor to report Randy's interference. When Randy realized the owner wasn't playing along, his face twisted, rage boiling over. He started yelling, hurling accusations at anyone in earshot, threatening the people who refused to back him. His supporters exchanged nervous glances. A few actually stepped away from him as his rant spiraled into something unhinged. I kept working, clipboard steady, tone calm. Every time I looked up, he was unraveling a little more. The owner finally had enough. He called security and Randy and his crew were escorted out. As they left, I caught one chef mutter to him, "You've gone too far. This isn't what we signed up for." That night, Walton messaged me. Randy had called an emergency all-staff meeting. And Walton had recorded it. The audio was a gift. Randy, pacing like a caged animal, barking threats at his own team if they ever cooperated with inspectors. Bragging about falsifying safety logs. Admitting, on tape, to driving women out of the industry if they rejected him. Years of abuse all spilling out of his own mouth. And then he made it personal. Later that night, my doorbell camera lit up. Randy. Alone. But he wasn't smirking this time, he looked desperate. He stared into the lens and started talking. He tried it all, threats, bribery, even a shaky attempt at tears. Said if I just transferred to another district, he'd leave me alone. Promised to clean up his kitchen. Claimed I was destroying his life's work. I didn't respond. Didn't even open the door. I just saved the footage. Another piece in the ever-growing case file. The next morning, Connor was waiting with a thick manila folder. His investigation into the false complaints was finished, and it was devastating. Randy had orchestrated every single one, complete with a digital trail of threats, coercion, and backroom deals to get owners on board. The department wasn't wasting time. Randy's restaurant license? Immediately suspended pending a full investigation. Every chef who'd taken part in his harassment campaign? Flagged for extra scrutiny going forward. Word traveled fast. Chefs who'd glared at me just a week ago now looked away. Some even pulled me aside to apologize, saying they'd only gone along with him out of fear. By lunchtime, Walton texted again. Randy had shown up at the restaurant despite the suspension. This time, when he ordered the staff to hide violations, they refused. When he threatened them, they pulled out their phones and started recording. The control he'd clung to so tightly was gone. That afternoon, I inspected a family-run place. The owner, Wendy, mentioned that private forums for restaurant owners were buzzing, decades-old stories of Randy's intimidation, inspectors he'd tried to strong-arm, women he'd run out of the business. People weren't whispering anymore. By evening, the chef group chat that had once been filled with threats had turned into a confession booth. Chefs were posting apologies, sharing their own experiences with his bullying. The same network he'd weaponized was now archiving his downfall. That night, I walked into my building and froze, not because of fear this time, but because it was quiet. No graffiti. No trash pile. No lurking shadows in the parking lot. For the first time in weeks, I made it to my door without looking over my shoulder. The next morning brought news I hadn't dared to hope for. Randy had been fired. His own restaurant owner issued a public statement condemning his behavior, citing the suspension and multiple harassment complaints from staff. Inspections that day felt different. Owners weren't just cooperating, they were eager to show they were running clean, safe kitchens. The chokehold Randy had on the district was finally breaking. That evening, I met Rose and 3 other women in a quiet cafe. They told me stories so similar to mine it was eerie, different years, different kitchens, but the same cycle of intimidation and sabotage. Sarah had a USB drive of saved emails, texts, and photos from 5 years back. Lisa had audio of Randy's threats. It was enough to bury him. And bury him it did. Within days, the State Restaurant Association revoked his membership. The culinary school cut ties. His name was blacklisted across the district. Even when he tried to work 2 districts over, local chefs warned the new employer, he was gone in days. My apartment building's management, who'd once considered evicting me over the disturbances, formally apologized and upgraded building security. The file I'd built, hundreds of pages of screenshots, recordings, and witness statements, was now part of a larger harassment and workplace safety case. Even if criminal charges took time, his career was already over. 3 weeks after that first night in the freezer, I walked into a brand new restaurant for an opening inspection. The head chef? Carla, the sous chef Randy had driven out years ago. She'd come back. Her kitchen ran like a dream, organized, efficient, and filled with genuine laughter. No fear. No intimidation. Connor later told me the health department was rolling out new policies because of my case: anonymous harassment reporting for inspectors, stronger partnerships with restaurant groups, training on workplace respect. What Randy meant to be my destruction had sparked something bigger, a culture shift. One morning, I arrived at a restaurant to find a small box at the hostess stand. Inside was a card signed by dozens of restaurant workers, thanking me for standing my ground and making the industry safer. I realized then, if I'd quit, if I'd transferred, if I'd let him scare me off, he would have kept going. Kept destroying lives. Instead, I'd outlasted him. And the shadow he'd cast over this district? It was gone. For good. If you enjoyed today's drama, just imagine what's waiting in the next one. Hit like, subscribe, and let's go find the next train wreck together. Thanks for watching.